In this episode of Product Bytes, we're going to talk with Zeina Zeitouni about the zones of value. Welcome, Zeina.
Hi, Valerio. Thanks for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Valerio. My name is Zeina Zeitouni. I'm a digital product manager and digital innovation consultant. I've been a product manager for over 10 years now and work with large companies to help them launch new products, new ideas at the intersection of design strategy and product management. I'm also a certified product innovation trainer with Spark Engine.
All right. So today we are here to talk about a new innovation framework called Zones of Value. And you invented that based on the work you did with several companies in helping them spark innovation. And let me ask you the first question. What is the Zones of Value?
The Zones of Value is essentially a collaborative framework for sense making. It is a tool, an experience framework tool that helps product managers, helps designers pull together and architect their product anchored in customer value and stakeholder value. So the tool is really to help pull together and understand customer value and architect the product based on that.
So you created that to answer a problem or a specific need. What kind of need does this framework solve or help people solve, and where it fits in the spectrum of activities that the product manager may be doing?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Zones of Value initially came to mind when I was working with a large group of stakeholders in a corporate setting. So it was, VPs and steering committees and various people that were trying to understand how we were driving innovation with a particular part of the business. And we had done a lot of customer research and identified and surfaced a lot of really interesting insights in customer value and customer needs. So it really addressed two problems. The first was to help communicate customer value and show how the product was going to address all the different pieces of customer value that we had identified. And the second was to actually help the product team stay human-centric and stay stakeholder-focused. So Zones of Value, it really focuses on the customer, but also focuses on the stakeholder ecosystem, which includes, some business value that we're generating, maybe some technical value or security and different zones, as we call them, in various realms. And so it really came out of that need to have a shared language around those things that was not attached to a particular methodology or a particular process. So a lot of times, the development teams were working in Scrum and they had epics and features, which were great. And, we're writing user stories and doing a great job. But a lot of times that wasn't the best way to communicate across the organization of what we were building, why we were building it, and how it was driving value.
And I guess it also helps to expand the understanding. People, product manager, teams may have some understanding of the value they want to deliver. The Zones of Value also helps to expand that understanding.
Absolutely. Zones of Value expand the understanding of what value is being created and generated by the tool, where certain elements of the product are focused on. And because it is derived from a very deep understanding of people and what they value, it really helps the team stay focused on that throughout the development process. So, imagine new people coming on the team, new feature requests coming in, they ultimately can be weighed against or I guess measured against how they contribute or which zone of value they fall into. So it also creates a conversation decisioning framework as well to help product managers and others, people who are investing in these innovations and companies make better decisions that they feel confident about.
Why the name? Where does the name Zones of Value come from?
Zones of Value name originated out of actually working on a project many years ago where we were having a hard time. It was a commercial banking project, and we were having a really hard time communicating to various stakeholders, what we were doing. And we had uncovered some really interesting insights and developed interesting value drivers based on those insights. And so it really originated from that. We thought, hey, this is customer value. How do we communicate this more broadly? And the word zones just felt natural. It just came up. We were working on an application at the time, and we didn't want to call it features. We didn't want to use a word that was too constrictive or too linear, so we wanted to keep it pretty open. So the word zones just it felt like a good match. I also had worked a lot in the physical design space before, so working on interactive experiences in physical spaces and combining the digital world with the physical world. So within that realm, I had worked a lot on the idea of zones within stores or within banks or within, so combining that to the digital space was the leap that brought the name together.
It sounds simple and catchy, and it looks like behind the simplicity there is power. It opens up a space for conversation, for exploration, discovery, all these kind of things.
Yes, every time I've used this framework, whether it's a 40,000 person company, a startup, it really has helped them communicate in an interesting way. So even just saying zones of value became easy. So I wasn't thinking, oh, I want a catchy name or anything like that, but it really helped to assign a language to the focus that the innovation was really centered around.
So where does the zones of value framework fit in the product development cycle?
When thinking about the product development life cycle itself, zones of value essentially fits into the, we call the design dimension. So in Spark Engine, we have our 5 dimensions of innovation. And, this is not a linear process. It's not a methodology. It is essentially another framework of how to approach and think about innovation. And within that larger framework are multiple frameworks, including the zones of value, that address various needs that the product team has at the time. So in the design phase, the needs that the product team may have in that moment is, okay, how do we start thinking about architecting this value? We've just defined our problem. We've defined the needs of our customers, the needs of our company. How do we take that and start to shape that into a product or service without getting too focused on the solution, on the technology? And so this framework fits in that design phase right after the define phase. So if you look at the 5 dimensions, we have a little star where zones of value fits. Essentially, it's meeting that need. It's saying, we have an understanding of what problem we're solving. We have an understanding what our customers need. We know what our stakeholders need and where we're driving business value and what the core of our product really needs to deliver on. Now let's start thinking about, how do we architect this and use this framework as that collaborative tool to start making sense and organizing thoughts, ideas, features that are going to fit into your ultimate experience. One thing to understand about the zones of value as a practice itself, as you're doing it with the teams, is the question I get all the time is, how do you create a value zone? Like, what goes into that? How do you know what a value zone is? So we've given you examples of what some common value zones look like, but essentially a value zone is derived from researching, synthesizing, and clearly defining the most valuable elements of the experience that you are envisioning. So after you've learned, sort of what your customers care about, or you have an understanding of what is important to your business and what value you're trying to drive across the board, that is the input that you would use to start to architect and create a zone. So if, being guided is a very important value element for your customers, you would have a guide zone in your zones of value. If discovering new products and learning about them, discovering new features is an important value element of your experience, then you would have a discover zone. In the Spark Engine class, we will talk about how to create a zone of value and see some examples of zones of value for various innovations and various products that we've worked on, and how we've used zones of value to really help to drive and help teams move into the development phase of their products.
Zeina, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing the Zones of Value framework.
Thank you, Valerio. It's always fun to talk about this work, and really a pleasure to be with you today. Appreciate the time.